On today's show, Robby Kalland is back. We have more over-unders, this time with the Atlantic Division, and we're getting under the wire before, hopefully, the Damian Lillard sweepstakes comes to an end. We'll get into all of that and more on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1557 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Wednesday, and we're getting in under the wire here, as I referenced in the cold open on today's podcast. You might notice at the same time, or around the same time, I should say, as this podcast, I also posted the Central Division over-unders with my friend Robby Kalland and I. Robby's back for this podcast as well, talking about the Atlantic Division. I was going to hold the Atlantic for one more day, but because of all the Damian Lillard rumors, and that saga is seemingly going to be heating up in the coming hours and days. I want to get it posted because teams like, for instance, Toronto or even Philadelphia could be involved, that kind of thing. So I'm not really able to hold these as long as I wanted to. So I'm dropping both of them at the same time. Part one, basically, of course, Central Division. Part two is this podcast you're listening to right now on the Atlantic, and plenty of overall fun to get into with the over-unders across the league. We also did the Western Conference last week, basically, in 3 different parts. I've also talked to Ben Ladner of Read and React and other podcast fame about the Hawks in recent days. We'll have much more content coming in the coming days. And again, Media Day is less than a week away as well. So please stay tuned. Please then, tell a friend about the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, but a little bit of a PSA at the top of the podcast because I wasn't intending to drop these podcasts back to back, but here we are, part 1 on the Central, part 2 on the Atlantic, and here we go on the Atlantic Division. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am joined once again by Robby Kalland. Robby, hello, sir. It's Atlantic Division time.
Let's get to it.
Let us dive right in. The Boston Celtics at the top of the Atlantic once again. 54.5 wins is the number at FanDuel Sportsbook. They had a pretty big change by Celtic standards. They've been kind of the same rough team the last couple of years. They've been quite good, of course, but they add Porzingis as the headliner. They add around him with some supplemental guys like Delano Banton's there and O'Shea Brissett's there, etc. They lose Marcus Smart and Grant Williams. They also lose 2 Hawks legends from the roster at the end of the year, Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari, who never played a game for them. But hey, he's not there anymore. 57 wins last year for Boston, which is higher than this number. But of course, this is a pretty big change. I actually don't know what you think about this. What did you make of that? And it's not, at a bare minimum, it feels like they've added some uncertainty that wasn't there before.
Definitely added some uncertainty. I get the move because last year in the playoffs, it was very clear that they needed some offensive upgrades come playoff time. The concern, of course, is you definitely changed how high your floor is because Porzingis he already has a plantar fasciitis issue right now. As we speak, he missed the World Cup because of it. So you are bringing in a guy who played, I think, the most games since his 2nd or 3rd year in New York last year. Was great for Washington. He is a dynamic offensive playmaker. He is a good rim protector at the 4 next to Robert Williams or Al Horford. You basically have 3 good bigs now, which they did not have previously. They were Grant Williams is good, but the problem with Grant in Boston, Grant in Dallas gives them something they don't have. Grant in Boston was just what if Al Horford was worse?
They also just stopped playing him inexplicably for
right, because of last season. Clearly something wasn't working there. But I get it, and clearly they believe in Derek White. And he is now the guy. He is now the starting point guard. He has taken over for Marcus Smart. He was 2nd team all defense last year. They clearly believe he can basically replace what Marcus does on the floor, do certain things better in terms of orchestrating an offense and doing less of the Marcus Smart stuff.
They also have serious injury. The Brogdon injury concerns that basically foiled that trade didn't just go away.
No, Brogdon,
and he's even more emphasis on Derek White.
And Brogdon's not happy they tried to trade him.
Which I understand.
Don't blame him.
He was basically traded. That deal was going to happen.
He was going to go to LA, and then he wasn't. it's weird. Like if you told me Porzingis plays 60 games, this isn't over because they're going to be very good.
Okay, let's have a very quick philosophical conversation.
Yeah, please.
I have a hard time with an over 54.5 on just about anyone.
Yeah, I think the Bucks
in the modern NBA.
The Bucks I've gone over before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not,
but it's got to be a special.
But it's hard to get there for me. And I think Boston just has a couple of too many uncertainties. Not that they couldn't do this, but as far as I just don't. I almost didn't even consider the over. It was like, do I want to give out the under or just pass? And it was like, I think I'm going to pass.
It's a pass for me for sure. Again, because I can absolutely see how they run it back to 57 again next year.
Sure.
But kind of like we said on the Central, like you kind of have to believe there's a 6 or 7 win over potential, and 61 wins would be a lot and hard to get to. So
and they could do it basically one team a year kind of does that. Last year nobody did it in the whole league.
Yeah, that was the weird thing.
But it's been one team for the last several years that generally on average does that kind of thing. It's just hard to figure out who's going to be. I mean, it was Phoenix a couple years ago. Boston's done it, but it's like Missoula. Honestly, another thing is do we know Missoula? We still don't know Missoula's good. We just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't worry about him too much regular season wise. It is interesting though, because we also don't know how much this impacts them in terms of giving up for games in the regular season. Because Marcus Smart's the kind of guy that makes everybody play hard, and demand, and he'll be on Jaylen Brown's ass in the huddle in January against Indiana, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You're now missing that.
He's been their guy. He's been their kind of vocal guy.
He's the guy that was. I mean, and they were always is there tension? Is there whatever? But he had the respect to get on the stars. He was the guy who could kind of be hey, you're not on it. You need to get it together here. And he would do that against the Hornets in March. That's missing. That's big for a win total that's this high.
Yep.
All of that. And so that's why I said, I still think if Porzingis played a bunch, they probably go over.
He was really good last year. I've never been a huge Porzingis guy. He was very good last year.
He was great last year. And I think the things that he's not great at are mitigated here.
Agreed.
All of that works really well.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think I see how it all works. I think come postseason time, if he's healthy, this is a better team than it was in the playoffs last year, which is all they should care about. But yes, there are questions for the regular season. I think it's just a strong stay away from me at 54.5. Yeah, probably a lean under, but I also I know that this is just a really good basketball team, and I'm scared enough of. We've been wrong. Me and you have been wrong enough about Jason Tatum in our history that we should just probably just stop.
I have stopped. I mean, he's very good.
He's just great, and so we should
they've won at this level. 2 of the last 4 years they would have beaten this number. They got a good chance at it. They do. It is a lot, and there are, like you said, there's just a lot more questions about this team than we've had in a while. And that's why I would pass, Robbie. At the end of the day. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. If you are like me at all, you might like the convenience of having stuff that you actually need or want sent directly to your door. And with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week ahead or order your last-minute cravings with convenience. You've already been trusted DoorDash in the past to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get the grocery delivery that you want to as well. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll actually find the best in your neighborhood, and to boost your local economy with each and every order. You get exactly what you ordered, or DoorDash will also make it right for you. You sit back and enjoy the quality groceries just like you pick them out yourself. If you want even more value, save on all the grocery or restaurant orders you might look for with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders if you have a Dash Pass membership. And they have easy substitutions right in the app, best-in-class customer support, and DoorDash delivers groceries to you exactly how you want them. And 50% off is coming your way on your first order with DoorDash, up to $20 in value when you use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. 50% off, up to $20 with no minimum subtotal and $0 delivery fees on your first order when downloading the DoorDash app right now in the App Store. Enter the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. One more time, the promo code is LOCKEDONNBA, 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Okay, let's move on to a team that we have all kinds of questions about, and that's Philadelphia. Philadelphia is at 48.5 wins at FanDuel right now. That feels like kind of a middle ground because we don't know about Harden. And that's obviously that makes it hard, but there is a number. FanDuel has a number. For a while, they didn't even have a number. They kind of punted like they did with Portland still, but Philly has a number. They made some changes. Kelly Oubre was a late signing that might help them. They brought in a couple of old guys. Danny Green and Pat Bev are there. Mo Bamba is there, which I'd forgotten about, honestly. They lost George Niang and Shake Milton, Jalen McDaniels, and old pal Dwayne Dedman, no longer in Philadelphia either. 54 wins last year with relative health from Embiid. Harden played 2/3 of the season or so. I said with Ben Ladner last week on the show, I'm a little scared about Philly in general because Embiid's been healthy, but he's a risk. And if Harden isn't Harden and not plugged in and playing, the rest of the roster is not terribly impressive to me. So I don't know what you think, but like this number's in a weird zone at 48.5.
This is a super stay away for me at 48.5. When we a couple weeks ago, this was 50.5 at certain places. At 50.5
for me,
50.5, I like the under pretty decently. At this point, it's a stay away, but I'm with you. I mean, my thing has been this entire time with the Harden situation. If they move him, they are not getting for what is apparently out there.
Which is the Clippers mostly.
And they're not getting a point guard back for him.
Nope.
Because the Clippers don't have one. Harden was the only guy that you trust to move the ball properly and to set up Embiid and to get the ball to Joel where he wants it. I mean, I've done this rant, I think 3 times on these podcasts already. But if you don't have a point guard to set up a big man, his efficiency and efficacy,
just passing in general, they don't have a lot of passers. Like Harden's a great passer. And
Harden's an elite table setter, and Maxey is not that. I like Tyrese Maxey a lot. Tobias Harris is good, but like he's still weird in this situation. I just, man, it's weird. I also like everybody's like, oh, like they upgraded going from Doc Rivers to Nick Nurse, and I'm like,
I don't know about that.
Sure?
Yeah.
Are we like?
Doc has his quirks, but he's a good regular season coach.
Are we sure? Like Nick Nurse is really that good?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I just want to be sure. Like I'm not off my rocker here.
Well, it's also that Doc, for obvious reasons, Doc has had some playoff challenges.
Yeah,
but like I think Doc objectively is underrated now in the regular season. I think Doc is a proven, like not quite. He's not on Bud's level, but like as far as like getting teams to win basketball games, he's been good at that for a long time.
Nick Nurse, like,
I
don't know, man. Just not. I'm just not high on Nick Nurse as a like elite.
I think NBA it's one we just don't know. Obviously, he won a title, and that carries a lot of weight. But I don't think we know much about
I just don't. I mean, like, I just haven't been impressed by. Look, we talk about all these Raptors guys that they're trying to trade, and how great they are. And like they can't win more. They are like a 500 team at best recently.
We're gonna get to them later on in this podcast.
So it's like, why can't you maximize your guys? And now you're going to go to another roster that doesn't have a lot of clear fits, and you're going to tell me that this is the guy that's going to maximize everybody.
And maybe it will work. We just don't. I think it's much more of a question mark than it is any. I
just see people talking about this like it's a clear upgrade, and I just don't see it, especially especially regular season. But like I just haven't figured out. Like I'm like, am I crazy? Like
people just sour on Doc, and I get why. It's just that there is the reality of what Doc has been in the 82 games, which is what we're talking about again on this podcast, not the playoffs, regular season. Anyway, there's some uncertainty there. Look, if Harden was there and we knew he was going to try, this would be an over. And then by the way, the number would be higher. The number would not be 40.
It would be it would be 51.
If Harden had just opted in with no strife at all, the number would be in the 50s. Yep. But because
it was all that 2 weeks ago, even with it.
Correct. So that's why it's a stay away for me. I think it sounds like one for you.
Yeah.
Simple principles. Just stay away from all this catastrophe.
Don't don't be financially invested in the Sixers. I know too many Sixers fans to know that you shouldn't be emotionally invested in the Sixers either. But like,
that's fine.
All set.
Fandom's a disease. It is what it is. Okay, let us talk about the New York Knicks. The Knicks have a number of 45.5. Slight juice to the
that's gotten way up.
Yeah, it juiced to the under a little bit, but I think people are going on my line of thinking of like, if you take a look at this, there's no reason this number should not be this number.
That was 43.5,
and that's way too low.
Sam and I
I
think that was our like condo steamer.
Again, you're moving lines. But no, I think the Knicks just didn't do anything in the offseason for the most part, except for they basically swapped not directly, but they swapped Obi for Dante DiVincenzo, and that's whatever you want to think about that. But they also, importantly, once they got Josh Hart, they were awesome.
Yeah,
and for the full season, they won 47 games.
Yeah,
and it was a real point differential at that level. Yeah. So like, short of injuries aren't that big of a question for New York because they're more of a depth team. They're not like a stars and scrubs team. I know Jalen Brunson's got a lot of helium right now. He's probably overrated at this point. I love Jalen Brunson, but
they also play like
it's Tibbs. They're going to grind.
They grind. They also play a style like they don't have any guys that play a style that's like super conducive to injuries. Like I talk about this a lot with like there are guys like Ja Morant, Anthony Davis, who kind of fly around and just like
and fall
a lot and put themselves in harm's Embiid even, who's just like always on the ground. And like the Knicks don't have a lot of guys. Like Brunson isn't like an explosive like athlete going to the rim or anything. Like he's not going to be in the air crashing to the ground a lot. Like he's a crafty point guard scorer when it comes to getting inside the paint. Julius Randle, same thing. Like he's just kind of like a more floor bound type of guy. RJ Barrett is probably their most explosive. RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly are explosive, but like they don't play it in the same way, like careening.
The argument's okay. The argument's against
team.
Yeah, they're deep. Again, I think people have kind of forgotten about the Josh Hart piece, but they were like
it
was a small sample size. They were very good with Josh Hart.
He's a really good player, and he's the exact type of player that they needed.
I generally do not buy this Knicks team as a contending threat in the East.
No,
I don't think that. But could they win 50 games? Sure.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. Like, this is not, as always, this is not a playoff conversation. Same thing we said about the Cavs. Like,
and who the Knicks beat in the playoffs?
The Knicks beat. I mean, look, here's the thing. I've just come around to the fact that Julius Randle is going to be good in regular seasons. Like, he's a catastrophe come playoff time.
Well, and as Hawks fans know very well from that series a couple of years ago.
And like, he's just bad in the playoffs, but he's really good in the regular season. That's all we care about for this.
Exactly. This is one of those things where at 45.5, it's less exciting than what is at 43.5. 43.5, I would have definitely said over.
Smash.
I still lean over here.
Yep.
I'm not terribly excited about the Knicks, like big picture, but like
no, but they're just
they're
just a good basketball team.
Yeah,
and like you said, like they're deep.
I don't trust.
I like adding Dante.
He's good.
That's not, and like he makes more sense for what they want to do than Obi Toppin. Like they don't play the same position, but
Villanova Mafia now.
Yeah, exactly. If you are a CAA client or a Villanova guy, you will be getting a call from Leon Rose.
Back to the Knicks at some point, but okay, we're going over less enthusiasm than we would have had a couple of weeks ago, but still an over on the Knicks at 45.5. The other team in the city of New York is the Brooklyn Nets, 37.5. I was surprised by Ben Lather's enthusiasm for the Nets on a podcast recently. I don't share that enthusiasm.
I need the pitch here because I don't see it.
It's okay. I don't really either, but it's almost easier to kind of just name the guys that are on this team.
Uh-huh.
But they did add Lonnie Walker, which is a nice little signing. They brought Dennis Smith Jr., who's actually pretty good last year.
He's a good backup. He's a good backup point guard.
But they lose a bunch of guys. Patty Mills now in Atlanta, of course. Seth Curry, Joe Harris. But their starting five is probably Dinwiddie, Bridges, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Nick Claxton. That's their best five.
Mhm.
Pretty good, pretty decent five.
Mhm.
Beyond that, though, it's a little bit dicey. Royce O'Neal's taking a step back. Dennis Smith, Lonnie Walker,
Solid.
Ben Simmons, Day'Ron Sharp. Your guy, Cam Thomas.
That's right, Hooper.
Cam Thomas. But like, okay, it's not quite as bad as the Wizards, where you just can't look at anything from last year. But like, this is a totally different team than it was for most of last season. They went 11-13 post All-Star break, but the numbers were worse than that on the margins. And that also included Mikal Bridges making every shot for 2 months. I don't know, man. I lean under, but I at least will acknowledge they have some good players.
Yeah, it's a lean under, no play though, because we don't know like what, if any, like I'm done even bothering trying to project what Ben Simmons is in terms of a positive impact.
I project nothing for Ben Simmons.
Nothing.
And I also,
well, the thing is, he played half the year last year. Like people act like Ben Simmons also just like sat out another year. He played half the season. He just wasn't very good. He wasn't like a catastrophe, but he just wasn't a super impactful guy.
Yeah.
And so it's just like
we should do a poll on this to ask people like basically how many games do you think Ben Simmons played last year? And I think people would not know the answer is 42.
He played more than half of the year by one game, but like
still,
it's kind of wild.
So they could make trades. Brooklyn's also like the ultimate team this year. That's like even big picture, like directionally, we don't really know what they're trying to do. Like there's been rumors about Dorian Finney-Smith being available in trade. He's not really a guy you trade if you're trying to win because like he's a valuable role player.
Well, tell Dallas that.
Yeah, well, but Dallas tried to get. At least Dallas tried to swing.
Try to get a star. Yes,
I at least understood that. I don't.
It's just fun. We saw like if you trade Dorian Finney-Smith, you probably won't.
You don't trade him to try to get better. Honestly, this might be my biggest shrug on the entire board. I don't know what Brooklyn looks like this year, but they could be okay. I just don't particularly
fine, but like again, like when we're talking about like what's their high level outcome, I don't see much that's above like a 500 team.
Strong agree on that.
And so that's why it's a lean under for me. Is like
maybe
there are outcomes where they win 30. They're like 31 games. That exists
definitely.
Like Mikal is like all time healthy.
Agreed. But Cam Johnson is.
Cam Johnson is not. Spencer Dinwiddie is not.
Should we talk about Spencer's lob throwing at some point in the podcast?
Oh my gosh, I can't.
One of our favorite topics.
Spencer Dinwiddie, please, if you ever watch a Nets game, like the one thing you should try to watch is if Spencer Dinwiddie tries to throw an alley-oop, because there's like an 80% chance that it won't be within the zip code of the guy he's throwing it to.
It is especially jarring when you cover the team that Trae Young plays for, and he might be the best lob thrower I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it's especially jarring when you watch all 82 games of Trae Young, and then you
watch Spencer Dinwiddie throw one over the backboard.
What is happening here?
Spencer threw a couple in the playoffs that were
amazing, concept
at like Nick Claxton's knees, and then he'd throw one that would like hit the top corner of the backboard, and it truly incredible stuff.
Perfect. That's perfect spot to leave that alone.
I'm glad I wanted to talk about that. Lean under, but like, nobody knows what the Nets are.
Lean under and shrug. Okay, final team in the Atlantic, the Toronto Raptors. We talked about a little bit earlier. The big swap there is losing Van Vliet and bringing in genuine old pal Dennis Schroeder, your guy.
Got a long history with my guy.
They got Grady Dick, who I like, but it's going to be a rookie. So rookies are not always great. They won 41 games last year.
That's correct.
And that's with pushing very, very hard on minutes for Stockton, Van Vliet, OG, Scotty Barnes, even Gary Trent. This number's gone down. I think it was 37.5. Now it's 36.5. I am out on the Raptors. I'm just out. Big picture. I don't know what they're doing. I assume they're going to keep trying to maybe evaluate Siakam trades. He doesn't want to be traded. As I've covered endlessly on this podcast about the Hawks, Siakam's people, I've heard from them. I don't know if Robbie has. They are getting the word out. He does not want to be traded. Period. And Atlanta's not where he wants to be. All these things. Yeah. I don't know what that means for now, because like, is there a world where they just like do the same thing again and win 38 games?
Yes.
Sure there is.
Yes.
If you
I will believe Masai makes the big trade when he does. So here's the thing. Here's my issue with Masai is in the Boston Danny Ainge zone for me.
He's
where
just not ever doing anything. He's just going to sit here and hold.
So here's the thing is like, I think he is so obsessed with this idea that he always wins the trade that he will not make the move unless he clearly thinks he's going to win the trade immediately in the public eye. And that was Danny Ainge's thing forever, and kind of still is. Like, he just objectively like won the Gobert and the Mitchell trades in terms of the value he got for them.
John Collins trade.
Like, he's just gotten better at like identifying the suckers, I think, than maybe Masai has. But like, I think he's just gotten in the space where like he is terrified of trading OG or trading Pascal. And obviously Pascal is a unique case because, like you said, he also just doesn't want to be traded. But like OG,
and he has an expiring contract.
OG like kind of just has made it clear he, like, by all accounts, doesn't really love his situation.
He just changed agents.
Changed agents again.
Yeah.
And so it's just like he doesn't want to be there, but you still can't trade him because you think he should be traded at a level that, like, they want like the Donovan Mitchell package for OG Anunoby, despite the fact that OG Anunoby does not have the pedigree or the successes on the court that Donovan Mitchell has.
It's not happening. And
so
we could do a whole Raptors podcast. It's just the fact that bringing it back to this year, like the current team as constructed, right? They're worse than they were a year ago. Like, Dennis was really good for LA in the playoffs. He's not as good as Fred VanVleet. We can be objective about that. 100%. And last year's team was fairly healthy, and they got a lot from their best guys, and they were really, really pushing their best guys to play a lot. We have a coaching change here too.
The Nick Nurse way.
Yeah, we have a coaching change here too. That I don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know anything about this guy.
We know nothing, which is it's not necessarily a pro or a con.
It's just again, like I already did my Nick Nurse good question earlier in the podcast, but he does play his best guys a ton.
He does, which leads to winning more. And they could. The Dame thing is funny because it seems like Dame does not want to go to Toronto from what's been reported.
That would be so
I'll ask it this way. What's more likely to you? Toronto makes a trade that makes them better or a trade that makes them worse for this season?
Probably worse.
I think so too.
Probably worse.
Honestly, them trading Siakam at any point in the next 5 months is going to make them worse.
Yep.
For the present, not for the future necessarily, but for the present. Like, let's just say the Hawks, the one offer that got reported from the Hawks was Hunter, Griffin, and some other stuff, right? That would have made Toronto markedly worse in the short term.
Yep.
So that kind of deal, all that, like, I wouldn't bet the over on Toronto with your money. There's no way. I would not do it.
Also, speaking of Masai's whole thing, can we talk about the fact that he just kept signing wings this summer? Like, all their free agent acquisitions were more wings.
We
need like somebody needs to make an intervention.
They got McDaniels. That was a decent signing for them.
Who's he? Like, they got McDaniels. They got they sent somebody else.
Garrett Temple.
Wing. Yeah, Garrett Temple.
They also, Will Barton was cooked. They lost Will Barton. I just don't like. We'll sign off soon, I promise. I'm not a believer in Precious Achiuwa. Jakob Poeltl is a good player, and he's there for. One of the arguments in favor of Toronto is that he's there all year this year. Yeah, that's helpful. But Jakob Poeltl is just like a league average starting center. He's a fine player, but he's not going to change.
Really good defender, but they've got a lot of really.
They couldn't shoot. Also, they couldn't space the floor last year, and they swapped Fred VanVleet for Dennis Schroeder, and they have a full season of Jakob Poeltl, who makes Clint Capella look like he can shoot. So, like, they don't have any shooting. I know they have Grady Dick. That was a pick I liked. But Grady Dick's a rookie, man. Like, he's a one and done.
Grady Dick 10 3-point attempts a game. Incoming.
Maybe.
I need it.
He should. They should. Honestly, they should.
Start him and just have him jack.
Rookies stink, and they should still play Grady Dick a lot because him and Gary Trent are the only guys that can shoot on this team.
Dude,
Scotty Barnes, people don't know that I'm not a Scotty Barnes guy.
Do it.
No, it's fine. I'm not.
Get out there.
Scotty Barnes guy. But like, if he doesn't help your shooting at the very least.
Does not help you.
Him and Siakam and OG together is not a formula that works. It just doesn't. There's not enough spacing, or I get it. The 6-8 thing is funny, but anyway, Toronto. I'm not high on the Raptors.
How do you feel on this take? Masai Ujiri is just Billy Knight with a ring.
As you and I well know, Billy Knight was just ahead of the curve.
He was ahead of his time.
Billy Knight made one catastrophic draft pick, and that's it. If Billy had not passed on Chris Paul, Billy would be seen in a different light, and that's okay. And look, that was about
ahead of his time, though. That was he saw the future. He genuinely saw the future of the NBA.
He did. He was right in a lot of ways.
He was
right in a lot of ways.
He was ready.
But
Toronto's just built
a
worse version of the Thunder.
Yeah. Going back to our principles before we sign off.
Yep.
I can't really see Toronto winning 45 games. They could get 38, 39.
Unless they get Dame and he plays.
Yeah, if they get Dame,
which is a 0.1% outcome.
If you want to wait till opening night to bet this, to make sure they don't have Dame, or if Dame gets traded somewhere else. But I would lean under at the very least on the Raptors.
Agree. I just don't want to, again,
sorry, Raptors fans.
A team I don't like to be invested in, the Toronto Raptors.
I got a lot of Raptors fans that listen to the podcast when I talk about
Seattle. God, Masai's the new Billy Knight is going to be a good one then.
It's going to go well. Hi, Katie.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. Thank you, Robby, for being here. As always, we have one more of these. I don't know how we're going to do the Hawks, because we can't do the Hawks in 5 minutes. That's not going to happen. So
we'll do two more. Maybe we'll do the Southeast, and then we'll do the Hawks.
Southeast,
we'll do seven of these.
Perhaps we'll do that. But anyway, please remind folks, if they're new to the podcast, where they can find the rest of all of your offerings.
Yep. UPROXX Sports, dimemag.com. The Twitter handle is below. The Puntcast is the podcast for college football betting. If you are really weird, like Brad, and like that. That's it. That's all I got. Yeah.
There you go. Please subscribe to this podcast.
Yes.
And that's number one on the agenda, of course. But also read dimemag.com, uproxx.com/sports, all those fun things. Yeah. And we'll see everybody next time.